I'm Brandi Kruse. Coming up today on Undivided, Washington state Democrats are on the verge of setting up the long-term collapse of our state's economy. And I just got to say, told you so. Plus, a Republican state senator explains why he supports a 6-cent increase in the gas tax. And the mom of a 2-year-old who died after ingesting fentanyl says the chair of Washington state's House Public Safety Committee seems completely clueless. That and much more coming up today on Undivided. Remember, you can support our show for just $5 a month by signing up at undividedpod.com. And if you are a first responder, a member of the military, or a veteran, you can get 30% off your first year of Undivided by using the promo code USA. Hello and welcome to Undivided. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. And you know what? Welcome to the only news show that covers what's happening in state politics full time, despite the fact they want to keep us out of the legislature because we're not in the cool club of the media. We're the only ones, I can tell you for sure, covering probably 6.5 hours of Washington politics every week. So give me a break. Also, if you can't tell, I'm grumpy today. You know why I'm grumpy today? I don't feel good. I'm just going to get it out there because in the middle of the show, I might throw up. I don't feel good. So 2 things. If you see the Pepsi on my desk, it's all Nicole had. She drinks Pepsi, not Coke. Super strange, but I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me take your lost Diet Pepsi. And I'm going to take all the pain and angst that I feel, and I'm going to funnel it towards Washington state Democrats who are setting up the long-term collapse of our state's economy to the point where it is not going to be able to recover. And they are ignoring every single warning about it, just like Seattle ignored the warnings about what would happen if they sought out certain industries and certain companies for taxation. What happened last week? Seattle's mayor came out and said, oh my God, our payroll tax collected $47 million less than we expected in 2024, and thousands of jobs have been moved out of the city. Just like me and many others with a brain told them would happen back when they passed the tax in 2020. So now, not even 5 years later, we're seeing that reality come to fruition. Yet at the exact same time, in the state legislature, Democrats are so hungry for money and so unable, is enable a word? Unable. Got it. Unable to budget and stop spending money recklessly, that they're thinking about taking that exact same tax that is, as we speak, devastating Seattle's economy and spreading it across the entire state so they can devastate the state's economy. And they're acting like they're doing the right thing. So there's a few things going on right now, and this is insane, and it's getting national headlines, and I understand why. Because to any logical observer, it's absolutely asinine to be doing this. And to act as if, oh my God, woe is us, we have no choice, when they've spent the past 15 years setting the state up to be in a position where we have a $14 billion budget deficit. So a couple things happening. Today, as early as 4 p.m., the House could vote on the budget that Democrats in the House have proposed, because Democrats have the majority. So Republicans really have no say in the matter. So it's the Democrats' budget. So they could vote on that in the House. I would argue the House budget is actually worse than the Senate budget. And the Senate budget the Democrats proposed and passed on Saturday is very, very bad. So if possible, the House budget's even worse. So we've talked about some of the elements of the budget that they've put forth, which again, even Bob Ferguson, who I think very little of, the governor of Washington state, came out, at least at the beginning of the year, in his inaugural address, and he said, look, we need to be honest with ourselves about how we spent our way into a $14 billion budget deficit. We need to start with cuts before we even consider taxes. Oh, Democrats in the legislature did not take too kindly about that. They started leaking out negative stories about Bob Ferguson, basically warning him, putting him on notice. Hey, you better fall in line, buddy. You better fall in line with the progressive Democrats and our tax and spend obsession, or we're coming for you. So even Bob Ferguson knows, this isn't really fiscally responsible. So facing a big budget deficit, I'll give you the high line items. So on Saturday, again on the weekend, as if they can't do this during the weekdays when people are paying attention. No, they have to do it on a Saturday. Democrats in the state Senate, there were only 2 Democratic senators who voted with Republicans against the budget. They passed the largest package of tax increases in the state's history. Billions of dollars in tax increases. And we know how they're going to spin it. I'll play some of the cuts from the debate on Saturday in a moment, but they're going to spin it as this was our only option. We're taxing the rich, and that's the only way we can avoid deep, hurtful, devastating cuts to our state budget, which none of that is true. None of that is true. So the budget that they passed on Saturday in the state Senate includes a couple things. It includes an unlimited property tax increase. So when you hear them out there saying we're taxing the rich, we're taxing big business, they just passed an unlimited property tax increase. 20 or so years ago, voters in this state said we want to limit property tax increases to 1% annually without coming to a vote of the people. So right now, that's pretty clear. Hey, Dow Constantine, King County Executive, wherever it is, we can increase your property taxes by 1%. And if we want to do more than that, we have to come ask your permission. Seems pretty reasonable, right? Voters thought so 20 years ago, but now they're upending that. And they're tying property tax increases to 2 things, inflation and growth, population growth, with no cap. So now they could come out and say, 9% increase in your property taxes. People won't be able to afford it. I hear from so many people who aren't low income, who have two incomes, working class households, who are saying this will tax me out of my home. At a time when Democrats are saying, oh, it's so expensive to live here. You know, the rent's too damn high, and they're trying to pass rent control. And they don't think that increasing property taxes at that rate without going to a vote of the people is going to make it even more expensive and in turn raise rents because somebody has to own the unit that's being rented out and that person is paying the property taxes. This is like second grade stuff. It's really wild. So they passed that. They also passed out of the Senate the business tax that would expand the failed Seattle Jumpstart tax across the entire state. Even when Seattle's mayor is saying, hey, this is devastating our economy. They don't care. Passed across the entire state. The wealth tax, where they're saying if you have more than $50 million in wealth, we're going to tax you on unrealized gains. Also an increase in the B&O tax. And then they slipped in some things that they thought would sound nice, like a 0.5% cut to the sales tax. Because that's what they're going to message on. Hey, we're cutting the sales tax. We're helping you regular people. And then we're going to stick it to big businesses. So all of this will be utterly devastating for our state's economy. And again, that's not an opinion. That's not my opinion. You look at what's happening in Seattle and you just take that and you expand it across the whole state. Why would what's happening in Seattle not happen statewide? Why would it be any different? Amazon started to leave, took 10,000 jobs out of Seattle over the payroll tax that was passed in 2020, and they moved them to Bellevue. You don't think they'll move them out of Bellevue to a different state when that tax that they left Seattle to escape goes statewide? Of course they will. I would. Of course they will. They don't have to sit and suffer in a state that doesn't want them here, in a state that seeks out to punish them despite the massive economic boost that they give to the state. But as complimentary as I am about Amazon, just wait, because Amazon has no backbone, neither does Microsoft or any of the big tech companies. We'll get to them in a second. But I want to focus my ire on Democrats. So when this went to a vote, and I should mention, Senate Republicans introduced their own budget proposal that had no big cuts, no big new taxes. They were able to figure out a way to balance the budget in a way that wouldn't be devastating, as Democrats said. But Democrats didn't even want to take a look at it because they're actually not interested in any sort of like responsible budgeting. They want to tax as much as they can and get away with it. Not to fund necessary things, to fund dumb shit. Like the hockey lessons for immigrant kids in Seattle. Cool concept, love it, not something the government should be paying for. But they've already made all these promises to all these donors and nonprofits who support their campaigns and, deal in race and social justice and quote unquote help the homeless without actually making our homeless problem any better. So they have to keep that money funneling out. So some of it comes back into their coffers and their political campaigns. So they can't rock the boat at all. They just want to tax as much as possible. So Senator June Robinson was the Democrat kind of leading the budget efforts on the floor on Saturday. And right before it went to a vote, they have couple people will stand up and make remarks on both sides before the vote for final approval in the Senate, right? So I want to play for you some clips from Senator June Robinson, a Democrat's remarks right before the Senate vote to pass this immense budget disaster.
We've had a lively conversation already. I will just remind us that budgets reflect our priorities, and as has been talked about on this floor already today, this year we are facing a tough challenge. We all know that our state is confronting a budget deficit, and to close the gap, we have made incredibly difficult decisions while keeping our state on a strong financial footing for the future. We didn't just focus on balancing numbers. We focused on building a thoughtful, sustainable plan that protects the services people rely on most and promotes the long-term fiscal stability of our state.
It doesn't do any of that stuff. It does nothing, none of that stuff. There was like 7 lies in that one clip. I mean, where do I even start? It promotes the long-term fiscal stability. You mean continuing to spend above our means promotes long-term fiscal stability? Passing taxes that you know will not bring in the level of revenue that you're expecting, because we already see that with the capital gains tax. You passed a capital gains tax in our state that was essentially aimed at Jeff Bezos, and what did he do? He picked up, moved to Florida, and sold his Amazon stocks. And then again, you look at Seattle, where they passed the very tax that you're now pushing, that you say is going to lead to long-term fiscal stability. And because Seattle thought that it would lead to long-term fiscal stability for them, they're now in a budget hole, and they're going to go tax working class people because the tax brought in $47 million less in just 1 year than they expected. Why? Because people just took the jobs away. So in no way, and it's crazy to me, does she actually believe that? Or is this just part of the lie and the grift to be able to just get people to sign off on new taxes because big business bad? It's very clearly not going to do any of the things that you just said it's going to do. All right, let's gird your loins. Let's continue.
But at the core of this budget is a commitment to the people of Washington, the people that we all come here to serve.
No,
it safeguards key supports, making investments like $93 million for grants to our food banks, $78 million for local housing programs to keep people in homes, $20 million to better aid our refugee and immigrant communities who are afraid and under attack.
So as an example about the critical things that this budget with the largest tax package in Washington state's history are going to fund, you give examples of 3 things that the government should have no role in? Do people buy that? Do people want the government? I guess. Progressives, they voted these people in. Again, so you're selling us on the largest tax package in state history, and you give an example of 3 things that the government should have 0 role in. Food banks. We have a robust private entities that would be happy and do fund food banks. Nonprofits. We have overfloweth with money in the state of Washington. People here are wealthy. They are happy and generous. They can fund the food banks. Taxpayers don't need to fund the food banks. The same with keeping people in their homes. Nonprofits with no government assistance can help bridge the gap for people who are going to fall out of homeownership or not be able to pay their rent. The government doesn't need to have any role in that. And in fact, we've seen when the government does try to stabilize the housing and rental market, it's an absolute disaster. And it leads to squatters staying in homes for 2 years without paying rent. And then the third one, you're going to, during a budget crisis, spend tens of millions of dollars providing special services to immigrant communities because they're under attack from Donald Trump. Like, that's the opposite of selling us on why we need the largest package of tax increases in our state's history. All right, I got more. Let's keep going with Senator June Robinson.
I know that small cuts in state funding can deeply affect people's lives. I care about people. That's why I'm here. And none of these choices was made lightly.
Literally crying. No sympathy for her. Give me a break.
We made $6.5 billion in reductions over 4 years.
Not enough.
The reductions are distributed thoughtfully across all areas of the budget to limit harm as much as possible.
I don't feel bad that you're crying. I don't. Because you should be crying about you and your party putting us in this position. So you're sitting here, oh my gosh, we had to make $6.5 billion in cuts, which doesn't even come close over 4 years to getting us out of the mess that we're in because you supplemented it with tax increases. But you should be crying because your party did it. Let's say this is a sad, sad situation. And let's say they had to, the $6.5 billion in cuts are going to devastate people's lives like she's suggesting, which it's not. You did that. Republicans didn't do that. No one else did that. But Democrats who have had complete control, a trifecta, for much of the last 25 years. So, are those cries of, do you feel bad? Is it because you know you did this and you feel bad? But also this idea that, oh my gosh, we know that cuts to government are devastating for people. No, you know what's devastating for people? When they get taxed out of their home in the state they love. You know what's devastating for people? When gas prices are so high because of the policies that you push that they have to come to the gas pump and put $5 in at a time. And they still can't quite get to work that day. That's what's devastating for people. Not cuts to government. And that's the problem, is Democrats believe the government is here to save us and solve all of our problems when government literally is the problem. Government is the problem. Government is making people poorer. Government is making people less safe. It is insane to me, this whole idea that if not for the investments of the government, our lives would be ruined. No, leave us the fuck alone. Leave us alone. That is what would make my life better. Stop reaching into our pockets at every opportunity to the point where people who used to be doing well, families that used to be doing well, are now saying they cannot afford to live here anymore. It's absolutely an insane way of thinking. I have a few more. Let's continue with Senator June Robinson.
We know that an all-cuts budget would have been devastating. It would be devastating, putting programs and supports in serious jeopardy across our communities. That's why this plan, this budget bill, pairs reductions with smart, necessary, and progressive revenue options. It asks the state's wealthiest individuals and largest corporations to contribute their fair share, ensuring those who benefit most from our economy, our robust, wonderful Washington state economy, will help to maintain the services that we all need.
This just, it writes itself. Why do you think we have a robust, wonderful economy, Senator Robinson? Why do you think that is? Could it be the companies that have decided to call Washington state home? Could it be because of companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Boeing? Could that be why Washington state has, although I don't know for how much longer, but has had a robust economy? So now you want to, by your own admission, punish the exact people who have made our economy robust, who have brought high-paying jobs. You want to punish them in a way that they're telling you will lead to them taking jobs out of state. Have you not thought that through? I guess I struggle to understand how a functioning adult could not comprehend that. Keep going.
The budget works to make our upside-down tax code even more equitable by cutting the sales tax from 6.5% to 6%, putting money back in the hands and pockets of Washington.
How generous.
We also provide meaningful property tax relief to low-income seniors and veterans with disabilities.
Can you imagine saying that moments before you pass a massive property tax increase? saying, oh, but we're helping the elderly and veterans. And what about the millions of other homeowners who are going to be screwed and have to leave the state? And you see the way that she couches it there. Oh, we are so generous. We are putting money back in the pockets of Washingtonians by cutting the sales tax, 0.5%. While we also increase the property tax rate by what? 100%, 200%, 300%? Where's the limit? So you see how they carefully wordsmith things. Oh, the rich are paying their fair share, so the rest of us can continue to enjoy all of these things that we desperately need. And we're also helping to make our tax structure more equitable by giving you a cut to the sales tax, 0.5%. And we're going to help make sure that seniors and veterans can stay in their homes, while not mentioning that you're signing off on a limitless property tax increase for the rest of us. It's so dishonest, and it's so brazenly dishonest. The sales job that they come up with, and I really don't know. I don't know if they believe it. They've convinced, you tell yourself a lie so many times, like we're doing something righteous and important and we're being equitable and this is good and all that, and you just start to believe it. Or if this is them behind the scenes saying, hey, here's how we've got to spin this to get people on board. I think we've got one more, right? Why not?
Overall, this balance of cuts and new revenue allows us to protect core services, some of which I spoke of at the beginning, and stay fiscally responsible for years to come.
Wait, I'm sorry. You're going to have to roll that one back. Can you play that one more time for me, Nicole?
Overall, this balance of cuts and new revenue allows us to protect core services, some of which I spoke of at the beginning, and stay fiscally responsible for years to come.
You catch that? Stay fiscally responsible. Do you call what's happening right now fiscally responsible? Because that would be concerning if you believe that the environment we're in right now, where we have a $14 billion budget deficit, reflects fiscal responsibility. And if you think that pushing taxes that will ultimately devastate our economy by driving major employers out of the state, driving our wealthiest people out of the state, and driving high-paying jobs out of the state is long-term fiscal responsibility, I have nothing I can say to you that would change your mind. If you actually believe what Senator June Robinson said in any part of that, there is genuinely nothing I could say that would change your mind. Because that would be a level of brainwashing that even my highly intelligent and reasoned political commentary could not undo. So Democrats are going to do what Democrats are going to do. They are utterly hopeless. They are absolutely hopeless. Save the two Democrats, and I want to, can you look up, Nicole, who the second one was? I know Senator Mike Chapman voted against the budget, so he gets a pass for me today. Pass. I don't know who the other one was. I can look it up, but somebody's going to tell me in the chat probably. You guys both get passes from me today. Pass. Because it's just asinine. And I'm sorry for swearing. It's just asinine. I don't feel good. Like I said, I'm taking out, my stomach just feels horrible today.
It's Crescenda or...
Oh, yeah.
Christian... Something.
Christiansen. I never know how to say your last name.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's got to run for election to that seat. So I understand making that vote. So pass. That's fine. Regardless of your motivations, pass. So that's all going on. Democrats are going to do what Democrats are going to do. Again, the House is going to pass its version today. At some point, they'll kind of try to figure out, or I don't know if they're going to pass it, but they're going to, we're told, vote on it this afternoon. So then they try to kind of come up with a version together. Whether Bob Ferguson signs it, after all his talk of fiscal responsibility, I'm not sure. But make no mistake, this does lay the groundwork for decimating our economy in the long term. And it might take a few years, but when you say we're passing a tax and we expect this much revenue, and then you don't get that much revenue, because you've already spent that money, right? So let's just say we're expecting $20 billion in revenue. And so you spend that $20 billion on paper and you start to push it out, right? And so when that money doesn't manifest, similar to what's happening in Seattle right now, when that money doesn't manifest, then we find ourselves back in a budget deficit because now you don't have the money to cover all the things that you're spending money on. Again, I don't mean to explain it to you guys like you're 5. You're smart. I know that. It's just shocking that we have to explain it to the party in power like they're 5 years old. And then you do, and they don't care, and they'll call me right wing, whatever it is, and try to keep me out of the wings of the Senate because I'm such a threat and such a horrible person, when I'm just trying to hold them accountable for their misguided actions. So Democrats are going to do what Democrats are going to do. Here's the thing. It could have been prevented by so many people if they were willing to think beyond like blind ideology. It could have been prevented by so many people. So there are a few groups that have come out in recent days and spoken out against these proposals, specifically the proposals having, targeting big businesses and the wealthy and expanding the B&O tax, which I think is in the House proposal, not the Senate proposal. So some local mayors came out. There was about a dozen who sent a letter to the legislature, basically asking them, please reconsider this. This is going to be devastating for our cities. So multiple mayors had a press conference, including the mayor of Auburn and the mayor of Bellevue.
Myself and the mayors next to me are here to ask for help. Help from our state elected leaders to reject proposed tax measures that would destabilize Washington's economy and have a lasting detrimental impact on our region's economic competitiveness. These taxes will impact thousands of businesses across the state, including Auburn. As a city, we've worked hard to attract a diverse group of industries from aerospace and IT to healthcare, manufacturing, and freight services. These companies have choices about where they can do their business. These taxes will make attracting jobs, great jobs, much harder, not only in Auburn, but in other cities across the state.
On Tuesday of this week, the Bellevue City Council voted unanimously to oppose the state's proposed head tax and increased B&O tax on large employers. We are concerned about the harmful impacts that these taxes will have to our economy, our large employers, and to our innovation ecosystem that fuels the region. We are concerned about losing strong community partners, our employees, as well as the many small businesses that will be impacted by the loss of this industry.
Yeah. So look, those mayors aren't the worst offenders in this. These are South King County mayors, the Bellevue mayor. These are mayors who have been friendly to business. They have spoken up when it comes to public safety issues and other bad legislation coming out of Olympia. That being said, the legislative delegations from those cities that are sending this letter are, with maybe one or two exceptions, almost entirely Democratic. Blue. So all of their constituents, all the people in their cities who are going to be negatively impacted, they voted these people into office. So how bad do we really feel, right? I mean, what sucks is people who aren't in the vote blue no matter who, and people who see these tax proposals and the irresponsible budgeting and spending for what it really is. I feel bad for the people who are going to be impacted by this, who did not contribute to it, who did not continue to put Democrats who support these policies back in office in Olympia. But like, for all these mayors, you guys represent Democratic constituencies, solid, deep blue legislative districts. And so again, like, it's going to devastate your city, but do you deserve it? Kind of. Because it's like, oh, we can't vote for anyone but a Democrat. So even if they're going to push tax policies that make us poor and take money out of our pockets and scare away all the high-paying jobs that we enjoy, well, because you don't think through the consequences, right? And I'm not saying, oh, you got to vote for Republicans. I don't care. I'm not a Republican for a reason. I don't really think either of the parties serve our interests before their own interests. But there are moderate Democrats out there, not very many anymore. But I think of the Mark Mullets of the world. There are a few other the two that voted against the Senate budget, Chapman, and I don't know how to say her name either Deborah Krishnanson in the 26th district, Gig Harbor, etc. There are Democrats who support like responsible budgeting. And there are also independents. And yes, there are a lot of really great Republicans out there too. But this idea that, hey, we just got to keep signing off, like on the Roger Goodmans of the world, people in Redmond. You keep sending a guy back to lead the public safety committee in Olympia who spits on public safety, who spits, figuratively, not literally, in case he wants to sue me, spits on police officers, spits on crime victims. And it's like, well, let's just keep sending him back because he's got the D next to his name. I mean, you guys know, I'm just venting to you, my friends, who are independent minded and who I know feel as I do today about all of this and just absolutely hopeless. So I'm grateful for these local mayors. You know, the mayor of Auburn, Nancy Backus, she's been a great friend of common sense and reason on the public safety issues, etc. But, you know, she's got a lot of Democratic voters in her district. And who you need to be waking up is not the legislature. That press conference, that should have been directed at the voters in your cities, not at the legislators. They don't care. They got their jobs. They were sent there to do the things that they're doing now. So that press conference should have been trying to appeal to the voters in your cities. Stop voting for these people. You need to come out and say, stop voting for these people, and then name them. Don't vote for this person. Here's why. So I don't necessarily feel so bad. Now, here's who I really don't feel bad for. The tech companies. I have been a good friend, a good soldier even, for the tech companies because I understand what they do for our economy. And it's not just the jobs that they bring. It's all the jobs that their workforces create by their existence. It is the good middle class jobs in construction, in the trades, in the service industry, in retail. The untold number of jobs that exist in the state of Washington because of companies like Amazon and Microsoft. And if you pluck those two companies out of this state, our economy will never recover from it. It will never be the same. So that's why I have fought so hard against policies that have targeted out companies like Amazon and entrepreneurs, like the capital gains tax. You think people are going to come here and build businesses when we have a capital gains tax? Of course not. They're going to go somewhere else. They're going to Florida. They're going to Texas. They're going to come to states that actually try to woo them and lay out the red carpet for them as they should. So I have no personal investment in Amazon or Microsoft and in defending them. I have a personal investment in the state that I love and mostly in the middle class, good paying jobs that result from having companies like that around. So there is no reason that I cannot tell them that they should be ashamed of themselves. Yes, the tech companies. They should be ashamed of themselves for letting things get to this point because there is a lot riding on your continued existence here. And frankly, you've been incredibly selfish. You have been incredibly selfish. And here's why. We have seen this train a-coming for a long time. And you guys pussyfooted around all these bad tax policies. You pussyfooted around, police defunding, whatever it was. The dumb issues of the day that progressives were so keen on. And you guys didn't push back publicly because, we don't want the progressives coming after us. I mean, they're already bashing in our windows at Starbucks and Amazon at any available opportunity, but we still don't want them coming at us any harder. And so we want to pussyfoot around this and, really not come out in any aggressive way against some of the asinine things that we're doing. And they're just general bad decision making. And then it goes even further because you look at a company like Amazon. What did they do last year? They spent millions of dollars to do what? To defeat the initiative that would have repealed the Climate Commitment Act. So the CCA, which isn't doing any of the things it said it's going to do, a minute fraction of the money generated from the CCA goes to actually reducing carbon emissions. But it's being put on the backs of the working class because they pay more money at the gas pump, they pay more money into their energy bills, they pay more money at the grocery store. So they're footing the bill for the CCA. It's not the polluters. We foot the bill for the CCA. And Amazon, with all its riches, because what? They have an arena called Climate Pledge Arena, so now they feel like they have to defend the CCA. So they actually spend millions of dollars to keep the CCA. And this is what I said at the time, you might support the idea, like, oh, yay, climate, right? You might support the idea. But when you support it, that idea, you're supporting and giving your signature of approval to the tax and spend environment in Olympia. Because when you say, hey, we're going to help fight to keep the Climate Commitment Act, which was built on a lie, the lie that it won't increase gas prices. So it was built on a lie told over and over and over by former Governor Jay Inslee. So now you're not punishing him for that lie because you're supporting the policy that resulted from that lie. And then we're going to get hundreds of millions of dollars and we're going to waste it. We're going to waste it on things that it wasn't even, that the promise was, oh, it would reduce greenhouse gas emissions and everything. Not doing any of that. So now Amazon, because it wants to look righteous, spends millions of dollars keeping a policy that was built on a lie and that takes hundreds of millions of dollars from working class people and lets the government squander it. So that is your signature of approval on the tax and spend appetite of Democrats in Olympia. And then you think it stops there? You think it stops there, like, oh, we'll support the CCA, and then they won't come back and pass other outrageously large taxes that will hurt us one day. No, of course they're going to. This is what they do. They're never going to be a friend of yours. They love it. They're like, thanks for the millions of dollars to help support the CCA so we could keep the money coming into our cronies and our allies. But that doesn't mean you're off limits, Amazon. Like, what did Amazon think? Hey, maybe if we spend millions of dollars helping them keep the CCA, they won't pass a tax on high-paying jobs. They won't increase the B&O tax. Maybe if we do that, they won't pass a wealth tax. They don't care about you. Like, you tried to make a friend with that money. What was the goal there? And now you turn around and act surprised that they're continuing this irresponsible taxation and spending. No, you signed off on it. So I don't feel bad for you. I feel bad for the people who will lose their jobs because of you. Because you're going to take, when the taxes impact you, you're going to take your jobs out of state. And then all the retail jobs, all the service jobs, all the labor jobs, they're going to be gone. And people are going to lose their jobs because you wanted to buddy up to the progressives when you knew their tax policy was bad. And then the tax policy came around and it bit you in the ass. And the same goes for Microsoft. Brad Smith was out, Microsoft CEO Brad Smith, President Brad Smith. He was in GeekWire. They had like this summit. They do these tech summits. This is the GeekWire headline. Proposed Washington state business taxes would weaken tech sector, according to Microsoft's president. So this is from Brad Smith. He said, I have frankly never been more worried about the future of the tech sector in Washington state as I am today, in part because of the proposal. Unfortunately, if you make jobs more expensive, it becomes harder to keep jobs or to grow jobs here. Yeah, correct. But where have you been? Microsoft has supported all sorts of progressive efforts and progressive policies that led and that fostered the environment that we're dealing with right now, where Democrats would feel so emboldened to push taxes that will very clearly decimate our economy in the next 5 years. And now you want to come out and use your voice and use your platform and use your leverage and say, I've never been so worried. Well, gee, I've never been so worried either, but that wouldn't come as a surprise to anyone because I say it every single day, and I have for the past 5 years. And so they want to stay quiet on all, you guys get what I'm saying, right? They want to stay quiet on all these things that have led to this environment where we have one party in control of everything, one party that has never seen a tax it doesn't like, and one party that has no semblance of what it means to take money from hardworking people and piss it away on stuff that doesn't work. And so you've got all these tech companies now like sounding alarm bells. You guys, you helped create this. You really did. And then I saw this article out of GeekWire as well. Report, Las Vegas is an attractive bet for Washington state millionaires fleeing the wealth taxes. Yeah, I bet it is. And good for Las Vegas. We saw this with the capital gains tax too. The capital gains tax very clearly is about punishing like tech sector millionaires and entrepreneurs. People who, were in the early days of Microsoft and Amazon and have all this money in shares. And they're like, okay, let's get a capital gains tax. You think that these people were out there aggressively speaking out against the capital gains tax? No. No, they weren't, because they didn't want to come across as like, oh, rich people bad. So they just kind of quietly, might have said a few things here and there, but didn't fight back against it. And the capital gains tax has laid the groundwork for expanding the payroll tax, for increasing the B&O tax, for passing a tax on wealth, on unrealized gains. And what was it? Satya Nadella with Microsoft. What did he do then? It's like, oh, we won't come out and be really aggressive in our opposition to the capital gains tax, but I will sell half my Microsoft stock weeks before the state implements the capital gains tax. And now it's like, oh, woe is us. It's just insane to me. It's crazy to me. And so, what do? Again, I think that the way that Amazon and Microsoft and other big businesses, and frankly, some local mayors who are now saying, oh, this is the end of the world. The way that it's cowardly, actually. I think a lot of them have been cowards in not pushing back against what was clearly the trend, right? Of overtaxation, wasted money, vilifying the rich. By not pushing back against it earlier because you wanted to appear a certain way. I mean, you've done this to yourselves. And it sucks, and I feel bad, and I don't want Amazon to leave. I don't want Microsoft to pull jobs out of the state. I don't want Starbucks or Boeing or anyone else to go. I want all those jobs to be here, but I don't blame them if they pick up and leave. I do blame them, however, for but allowing for the environment to put us where we are right now, because they could have used all their power and their influence and, yes, their money to try to ruin these Democratic lawmakers. Really? To try to fund campaigns of people who would go to Olympia and be more business friendly. But, we can't do that. We can't really get too in bed with the Republicans because then people will be mad at us. They hate you already. Like, you're not making friends around here. If you can't tell, I don't care about making friends. I mean, I have a lot less to lose than the CEOs of major tech companies. I understand they're balancing a lot of things, but you could have said more early on and you didn't. So too little, too late, I guess. And I don't know where we go from here. I don't know if Bob Ferguson will veto some of this, but I don't blame anyone who's starting to really consider leaving. Over the property taxes, over the fact that maybe their job won't be here in 5 years, if it has any sort of tie to the tech sector. It's unreal stuff. A lot of cowardice. A lot of disappointing cowardice, frankly. So, I feel better. Actually.
I told you that would happen. What you got going?
I feel better. I feel like I got it all out of my system, and now my sickness came out as well.
The Democrats just making you sick.
Well, yeah, that's every day in a different way. All right, coming up next, another tax increase that you can look forward to is an increase in the gas tax. However, we can't blame this one only on Democrats because it actually does have bipartisan support. We'll discuss. First, I've encouraged you guys to take the First Mark Challenge. I mean, look, with all the new taxes coming down, wouldn't hurt to look for ways to save money, and First Mark can help you do that for free. We all need insurance. The question is, do you have the right insurance, and do you have it at the right price? Well, First Mark, they've been doing this for a long time, so they're going to go over your current insurance with you. It just takes a little bit of time over the phone, talk to you about your insurance needs. Maybe you have some changes coming up, like, I don't know, maybe you're adding a teen driver, oh, God forbid, and you're worried about what that might do to your car insurance rate. So First Mark will go out, shop their vast market of carriers, and come back to you with their recommendations. And they could, like so many Undivided viewers and listeners, save you thousands of dollars a year. I heard from Beth, she's saving $4,000 a year after taking the First Mark Challenge, and she's sort of like, what the hell? I should have done that way earlier. Eric said the same thing. He said they're saving him 30% on his auto policy and 70% on his homeowner's policy. So he says he now tells anyone he knows who's dealing with changes to their insurance to give First Mark a call. I did, and I'm truly richer for it. So don't wait a day longer. Reach out to our friends at First Mark Insurance today and take the First Mark Challenge. It's totally free. You never pay First Mark anything for their services. FirstMarkInsurance.com, FirstMarkInsurance.com. The very best part is they work for you. So they're always going to have your best interests in mind, even if that means turning away your business. We've had people who've taken the First Mark Challenge, and First Mark's like, actually, your insurance is pretty good. You don't need us. So that is really, I think, the indicator of a good, honest company that's serving you. Okay, so the budget is happening, right? But the transportation budget is a separate beast. And, transportation funding, the different sources, they're very thoroughly defined in state law. So the transportation budget happens sort of on an island. Well, the Senate has now passed its transportation budget, which includes a 6-cent per gallon increase in the gas tax. So add that to like the already, 49 cents or something. And then on top of that, whatever the Climate Commitment Act adds to a gallon of gasoline. And we're paying so it's 6 cents per gallon. Right now, the gas tax is 49 cents a gallon. Good grief. So if this goes into law, you'll be paying in just flat gas tax 55 cents a gallon, just in taxes, okay? And then, of course, on top of that, whatever the CCA is adding, which at times has been up to 50 cents a gallon because of the Climate Commitment Act. And then beginning July 1st, 2026, the total state motor vehicle fuel tax rate will increase by inflationary adjustment, a factor of 2% each year, which will compound annually. Great. So look, I love to blame the Democrats for things, obviously, because they're the ones in charge. But this proposal actually has bipartisan support. So we have a Republican senator on the show with us today to talk about why he supports it. This segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. I know they're kicking out info on a lot of opportunities to raise holy hell right now. So make sure you sign up for their newsletter. So State Senator Curtis King is the Republican from the Yakima area, and he's sort of the lead on the Republican side, working with State Senator Marco Elias, a Democrat, putting together the transportation package. And I saw, Nicole and I were seeing last week, all these Democrats saying, oh, the gas tax increase is bipartisan. Oh, the gas tax increase is bipartisan. I'm like, bipartisan who? I was like, well, I demand to know what Republican supports that and why. Well, it turns out Senator Curtis King helped State Senator Marco Elias craft this transportation package. And so I asked him to come on the show and explain to us why he thinks we need a 6 cents a gallon increase in the gas tax.
The gas tax is the biggest source of funding for transportation. Has been, it's declining, but it has been for many, many years. Since the transportation budget started. So as we looked at what are our options, where can we make the biggest bang for the buck? What can we do? And it was gas tax. And yeah, I know that the gas prices are high. I know that there's reasons for that. I unfortunately can't control all of those things. But so as I looked at how do we move forward, I was willing to accept a gas tax increase. It's 6 cents. It is something that would allow us to address the shortfalls that we have in maintenance and preservation, which are in the billions. It would help us address our safety issues, a lot of our safety issues. We've gone from, I don't know the exact number, but 400 plus deaths on our highways. In 2024, it was 810. So I said, we got to do something. And when you, to your point, when you talk to people about why do we have to increase the gas tax, it's because that's how we fund and have funded transportation for the last 100 years. And so when you say, and here's what we're going to do it, because gas tax money is protected by, I believe it's the 18th Amendment, which says it can only be used for roads, bridges, and highways, which is where our biggest needs are coming from. And so that's why I was willing to look at a gas tax, why I was willing to support a gas tax. It's 6 cents. It's that's substantial, but it isn't, in my opinion, overwhelming. I buy gas every week, usually twice a week, because I usually try to get home on the weekends. So I do a lot of traveling. I have seen the price of gas go from less than $3 to a little over $4, back to $3.50. I think I paid $3.39 or $3.40. Next week I'm going to pay $3.60, and the week after that I'm probably going to pay $3.20. I mean, it is over the board, up and down, every week, every day, just about.
Well, you tell me where you're getting gas, because I got gas for $4.60. So are you getting it before you come on this side of the Cascades, or what?
I am, yes. I
Smart
bought it
man.
at Costco. Just if you want me to say, I bought it at Costco and in Union Gap. So,
All right. So if you just pick up some, fill up some tanks, and then on your way through, if you could drop some off for those of us who are paying far more than that. So what I'm understanding here, and just to be reasonable, law
No.
and the state constitution gives you very few tools in your tool belt to be able to go to for revenue, for transportation. And I understand that. Forgive me, but where the hell is the CCA money going? I mean, they're getting hundreds of millions of dollars, Senator, much of that coming from people at the gas pump who have had to pay at times up to 50 cents extra a gallon for the Climate Commitment Act. Shouldn't you guys be overflowing with money for roads and bridges and stuff? Or are you excluded from using that?
We are, well, from a Republican standpoint, I would say we're pretty much excluded from using that. When the CCA was passed, they said that money can only be used if you are addressing loss, or what is the word?
Carbon emissions?
Carbon emissions. You're addressing reduction in emissions in the state. That's the only thing it can be used for.
And we know that that's not what it's being used for. We know a small percentage are going to programs that actually do that.
I understand that thoroughly. And it's going to programs, it's gone to things that if you go back and look at they spent the money, what are the results? They haven't improved anything. But I would point out to you, and this isn't an excuse, because I'm the one that said I would do this, and if people want to be upset with me, they can. I did it because I thought it was the best way to represent the people that I represent, and also represent the people in the state of Washington. But that CCA money is just untouchable. The Democrats, who have 30 Democrats in the Senate and 19 Republicans, we don't have a whole lot of say about where it's going at this point in time. We have tried. We have said, as an example, we're going to build a new bridge across the Columbia at Hood River. The bridge that's there now definitely needs to be replaced, but we're going to add a bike and pedestrian path to that new bridge. They told us that they would only pay for, out of CCA, they would only pay for the electrical part of the ferry, the batteries. That's all. They weren't going to pay for the whole ferry. They were just going to pay for that electrical part, because that's where all the emissions were being saved. And I said, okay, if that's the way you want to look at it, then what about my bike and ped path that we're adding to the Hood River Bridge? Because that's going to save emissions. That's going to do all these good things that you like to do. So can't CCA help us pay for part of that? And the answer was no, Senator, that's just part of the bridge. So this is what we're dealing with. And I would tell you, and I'll give Senator Leas a lot of credit, he is now considering that those two, what I would say are very similar things, and seeing if that isn't a possibility that maybe we could make that change with CCA. He hasn't committed to that yet, but he's open to having those conversations. That's why I got involved. That's why I said I'm willing to do this. I know people don't like new taxes, but if I can assure them that we're going to use this money, particularly the gas tax, to improve our roads, improve our bridges, make our highways safer, I think they would support me.
Well, it sounds like you haven't been left with much of a choice. I mean, the idea, the example you gave is a perfect example. How could you tell me you can't take those CCA funds and use it for something like that when it's drivers who are paying in the vast majority of that to, offset the cost of the fuel companies that had to pay the climate for the climate credit.
Right.
So it's just insane. And I hope that Senator Leas is serious about considering that. I mean, I want the CCA to go away, but if it's not, which it probably isn't, then some of it should be able to be used to offset, not have to raise our taxes at the pump. So, well, Senator King, I appreciate the thorough explanation. Please say hello to your legislative staff. We know they're fans of the show, so that makes them
they are that,
incredibly
let me tell you.
smart, and
Yeah.
they're just so nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for updating us.
Oh, well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to explain as best I can about what we're trying to accomplish here. And I thank you for everything that you do. And we want you up here in Olympia. We want you to be have access that you would like to any place you want to go. So thank you very much.
Well, that makes one side of the aisle. Thank you, Senator King. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Senator King referring to the Democrats trying to keep me out of the wings in Olympia. So luckily the Republicans have taken steps to allow me in the wings, which is very nice. Look, I kind of understand the situation that he's in. I mean, I'm of two minds about it. So first of all, Democrats are going to pass what they want to pass with or without Republicans. They do not need any of the votes from Republicans to be able to pass it. That being said, they really do limit the ability to pay for transportation projects to the gas tax. So the tools that you can use to fund transportation projects are very limited. It is ridiculous that CCA money would not be able to be used for those things because we're paying into the CCA. That's happening to us at the gas pump. So if the CCA is coming down on us at the gas pump, drivers, why would we not be able to use that to supplement the transportation budget so you don't have to come back to us for a 6 cent a gallon increase? And by the way, the House transportation budget is 9 cents. They want 9. So, I mean, could Senator King just say, no, I'm not raising taxes. You guys can't spend responsibly, pass this budget on your own? I suppose. And it sounds like he's trying to get them to open up some of the CCA money for transportation funding so they don't have to continually raise the gas tax. But, I mean, I will say that Democrats are going to excuse this and continue to use it, it's bipartisan. It's bipartisan. It's like, well, why don't you guys open up some money from the CCA so that we don't have to keep reaching into people's pockets at the gas pump? All right, that segment was brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter to be alerted to opportunities to do just that. I've also been made aware that we're having a little glitch on YouTube. Some people are like, mine's fine. Other people are like, mine's not fine. Might maybe have something to do with the something you're using to stream it that's consistent. I don't know. But it looks like we're fine on Facebook and X.
Sure.
If you want to mosey on over to one of those places, if you're one of the ones having issues with our YouTube stream today, maybe refresh, hit refresh. All right, we had a pretty heavy episode of Sundays with Subscribers this week, and it's an issue I care quite a bit about because it's just one of those, like, either you're using common sense or you're not issues. So we had on a young woman, 24 years old. Her name is Lily Peden. She lost her 2-year-old daughter who died after ingesting fentanyl. So her 2-year-old daughter, Nanny, had been dropped off for a visit at Nanny's dad's house. The two of them weren't together, so was going there for a visit. And her dad had had some substance abuse issues. Lily did not believe that those were ongoing. And then Nanny got into something containing fentanyl pills, ingested quite a few of them, and ended up dying. Just a devastating story. So Nanny's dad was sentenced to 8 years in prison over it. But this story came up, actually we'd first heard of Lily and Nanny in a King 5 story. So King 5 News had done a story looking at some bipartisan efforts in Olympia to try to increase protections for kids against fentanyl use in the home. Some of our laws are really outdated. Like there'll be protections and increased punishments if you have meth around kids, but like not fentanyl. And so they're trying to update all those statutes, and Democrats on the far left are like, no thanks. We don't think if a parent's abusing drugs, they still deserve to have their kid around. I mean, really, this is pretty insane stuff. And so in this King 5 story where we saw, this is why we wanted to have Lily on, because we saw her in the King 5 story, the reporter had sat down with Representative Roger Goodman, who's the chair of the Public Safety Committee, who wasn't letting any of these bills get a hearing. It was like there were so many bills, even bipartisan bills, put before him to try to better protect kids from drug-abusing parents, and he just wouldn't give them hearings. And he said this, he had this crazy quote on King 5. Here's a clip from that story.
Representative Roger Goodman is the committee chair. He says the state doesn't want to charge parents, which would separate them from their kids, and that historically, criminalizing drugs disproportionately affects people of color.
Many grieving parents, grandparents tell me it feels like the state is protecting the adult and the child who died is not getting justice, that their life does not matter. What do you say to that?
There have been so many tragic incidences with families and children exposed to these substances. If you're committing a crime, you need to know you're committing the crime. And so many of these people who are suffering from a severe substance use disorder have no idea what's going on. And the question that many of my colleagues have is, do we want to attach criminal liability to someone who is suffering from a substance use disorder, even if someone else may be harmed?
Yes. Yes, we do. Who even says something like that? Oh, well, they're so high on drugs, they don't know better and they killed their kid. Do we want to attach criminal liability? Yes. Representative, yes, we do. This is the guy in charge of the Public Safety Committee. That's an insane thing to say. So after that story was done, Lily Peden had obviously watched the King 5 story, and that's when she saw those clips within the same story of Representative Roger Goodman. And I mean, this is a 24-year-old woman, right? And she's gone through this horrible ordeal, losing her daughter. But even she, who wasn't politically interested or involved before this, even she could watch that and think to herself, that is a guy who has no idea what he's talking about. So Lily Peden joined us on Sundays with Subscribers to talk about her ordeal, but we also had her react to that clip from Roger Goodman.
Honestly, since she passed, I mentioned that the only good thing that can come from a child dying is awareness to what leads to their death. And obviously in this case is fentanyl, but even more so, it's like you're saying, the way that politicians treat fentanyl. I've never really been much to follow politics, but I've also, I can't really say that I'm specifically Democrat or Republican because there's things on both sides that I heavily agree with and things on both sides that I heavily disagree with.
Yeah.
So I've kind of, I barely even watch the news besides the coverage of this, you know? So
what are some things that you've been surprised to learn when it comes to how politicians view fentanyl and children?
In general, I think I don't understand the not wanting to split up families thing. I don't think that just because you have a child, you're entitled to that child. If you don't act the way that you're supposed to raise that child, then you don't get to raise that child. I don't think that we should keep families together just because they're families. Obviously, give them opportunities to fix it and become a better parent. But if they're just continually getting the cops called on them for using that with their kids with them, I don't think that they deserve to raise those children.
Yeah, so the Keeping Families Together Act, which has been the law for a few years now, Republicans have tried to undo it. They don't have enough votes to be able to do that. But, the idea being that it's more harmful for a child if you pull them away from their parents than potentially being exposed to deadly drugs. And so they're saying essentially that even if there's drug use in the home, we're going to do what we can to keep a child in that environment. The Department of Children, Youth, and Families even started offering parents lock boxes where they could put their drugs. So
I suppose it's better than nothing.
Didn't get it, but it has to sound ridiculous to you.
It does. I think that they should do what they can to keep those parents in the child's life, but not necessarily the child in that parent's home.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that you can do. You can have supervised visits with a grandparent or a caseworker or something to where they can still be in their child's life, and that child isn't completely void of a mother or a father, but they're not solely responsible for that child either because they're proving to be irresponsible.
Well, and I've said it, and it sounds devastating, but you can't keep a family together if someone in that family dies.
Exactly, that family is not together.
On the King 5 story, Representative Roger Goodman basically said, well, we don't want to criminalize something, that could separate a parent. What did you think when you heard his comments?
Well, before this story, had never heard of him. So I didn't do any more research into him, but just from what he said on there, it sounds like he, hasn't been paying attention very much to those laws or anything. It seems like he had limited information and was remembering from reading one thing about this or just barely reading, maybe even not reading about our story, my daughter's story, but it sounded like, it sounded like he didn't really know what he was talking about. It sounded like I don't understand. He wasn't focusing on the fact that children are losing their life because of this. He was focusing on the fact that parents are having their kids taken away, which if you, like I've been saying, if you don't act responsible, you should have your kids at least taken out of your home, maybe not taken out of your life, but taken out of your home.
Does it seem to you like they're prioritizing like a drug user's feelings or whatever it is over a child's safety?
Definitely. It seems like they're trying to make sure that the drug users don't do more bad. And so if we don't take their kids, they're not going to commit more crimes or something, you know? I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand keeping families together above all else.
Yeah, 100%. And it's kind of scary for you as someone who doesn't follow politics to watch Representative Goodman, who I've been very critical of, and say he kind of doesn't seem like he knows what he's talking about, because that's the chair of the Public Safety Committee. I mean, that is the guy who has refused to give some of these bills that would protect kids' hearings. I mean, he single-handedly can stop these bills really from moving forward, which is a pretty terrifying thing for you to look at that as a layperson in the criminal justice system and say, he sounds like he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, a lot of times I also watch him and I'm like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. You know, you have a personal experience that I think is really important. And one of the things he's been accused of by me and others is failing to hear from survivors and victims and people who've been impacted by crime. He's very singularly focused on the perspective of the people who are committing crime.
I don't think that their perspective matters in this case. They're committing the crime. Like obviously don't treat them like crap. They're still a person, but they're the ones committing the crime. Why do we care what they think about how we're treating them?
Great question. I mean, this is a 24-year-old mom who really wasn't interested or active in politics at all, lost her daughter, horrible ordeal, and even she has the sense to say, why do we care how they feel about it? They're the ones committing the crime. You know, her, the father of her daughter had fentanyl in a home with a child. She died from it. Why do we care how he feels? So here you have this young woman who has more sense than the chair of the Public Safety Committee. It's just stunning to me that they weren't able to get something done on this issue really in Olympia. And there were bipartisan efforts to do so. There were some common sense Democrats who were trying to push legislation forward, working with Republicans, and Roger Goodman, he's like the woke bridge troll. It's like, no common sense through here. Wild, wild stuff. If you want to watch that full interview with Lily Peden, you can do that by becoming a subscriber, undividedpod.com, undividedpod.com. You can watch that episode and every episode of Sundays with Subscribers by signing up. Okay, we're going to get to unbelievable. Donald Trump, this is the reason. This is one of the reasons he can't shut his mouth.
You just like me to defend Trump.
You're going to find a way to defend him in this
Absolutely,
one?
absolutely.
Oh my God.
It's not him. He's not starting it. They're setting him up for this.
Okay. All right. We'll get to that in a second. First, if you're thinking about selling your home, reach out to our friend Wes Jones at sellwithwes.com. May is going to be a fantastic month of the year for home sales. And really, this is a seller's market right now because there's pent up buyer demand. And so if you've got a home that hit, Nicole's over there smirking because she's plotting her comeback for me on Donald Trump. No, she's literally over there grinning ear to ear. I'm in the middle of an ad read, Nicole. I'm in the middle of talking about Wes Jones with sellwithwes.com. So if you have a home that hits the market, it's priced properly, which is a big thing, and it's properly prepared for listing. Those are the homes that are being snatched right up. I mean, we had a home in our neighborhood where I couldn't believe the offer that they accepted for us. Like, holy smokes. So the real estate market, it's doing well. If you've got a home that's properly priced, prepared for sale, both things Wes Jones can help you out with. So reach out to a few real estate agents, sure, but do not pick one until you've talked to our friend Wes Jones. He'll start by giving you a free market analysis to help you understand how much your home might be worth. And then he can talk about his listing boost concierge service, which is just them coming in, making sure that everything is done so your listing stands out. That's one of the things they do best. I mean, you look at their listings and the video they produce and all the marketing material compared to other real estate agents, there's no comparison. Sellwithwes.com, sellwithwes.com, a better way to sell your home. All right, let's see what Nicole's defense is for Donald Trump saying he's not joking about running for a third term in our segment, Unbelievable. Can't wait for this one. Little Donald Trump puppet over there.
No.
All right. So this from the Associated Press. Trump says he's considering ways to serve a third term as president, which is something that, like, he's kind of joked about, you know, over over time. This isn't the first time he's brought this up. And before I would have said, well, he's just kind of joking. He's not actually going to do it. The Constitution doesn't allow him to do it. Well, then he did a phone interview with Kristen Welker at NBC, and he said specifically, I'm not joking. Quote, President Donald Trump said Sunday, I'm not joking about trying to serve a third term. It's the clearest indication he's considering ways to breach a constitutional barrier against continuing to lead the country after his second term ends at the beginning of 2029. Quote, there are methods which you could do it, Trump said in a telephone interview with NBC News from Mar-a-Lago, his private club. Obviously, don't stop. What I hate, and this is has always been one of my reservations about Trump. I love almost everything he's doing right now. And we don't need distractions like him saying, I'm going to run for a third term, I'm not joking, or I'm not joking and I'm considering it and there's ways you could do it. I just think it's one of these examples of a self-inflicted wound that distracts from the important work he's doing. Not that the media couldn't find other things to focus on. Nicole?
Yeah, well, I think we need to play this cut first. His response to it.
Oh, he was asked on Air Force One to clarify, like, hey, are you really thinking about doing this?
Does that mean you're not planning to leave office on January 20th?
I'm not looking at that, but I'll tell you, I have had more people ask me to have a third term, which is in a way a fourth term, because the other election, the 2020 election was totally rigged. So it's actually sort of a fourth term in a certain way. I just don't want the credit for the second, because Biden was so bad, he did such a bad job.
Is it your understanding that they have to
I don't even want to talk about it. I'm just telling you, I have had more people say, please run again. I said, we have a long way to go before we even think about that.
President said, even if it wasn't you in this position, to see a president serve a third term.
I don't want to talk about a third term now because no matter how you look at it, we got a long time to go. We have a long time. We have almost 4 years to go. And that's a long time. But despite that, so many people are saying, you've got to run again. They love the job we're doing. Most importantly, they love the job we're doing.
Now, look, in there, he's like, well, I don't want to talk about it. But then he doesn't rule it out. He's like, oh, we've got a long way to go. Okay, Nicole,
That's
you go
true.
ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I think that number one, he gets asked about it constantly. And he is not one to just say, I'm not answering that. I'm not answering that. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it. He just gives... He responds. He gives them answers, right? I mean, I cut that down. It was quite the spiel, right? But I also think that this happens often to presidents. You don't want to be considered a lame duck, so you get in there and you're like, well, I'm just going to throw it out there. Like, yeah, maybe there's a third term.
I've never heard a president do that.
No, I'm not saying the third term. I'm just saying, like, when Biden, he had to say he was going to run again, or he's a lame duck, right? So then you just say, oh, yeah, I'm going to run again. I'm going to run again.
He did run again.
Well, I don't know. But, I mean, people allowed that to happen for as long as it did because they didn't want him to be considered a lame duck. And I think that Trump knows the value of not being considered that. And so he's just thrown it out there. I don't think that it'll go anywhere. If it does, I think that's stupid. You can't be this constitutional president and then try to change the way we do it here. But I definitely think that this is him getting harassed by people that want to blow up these little, see, he's not really for the law. He's not really for the Constitution. So they say, well, are you thinking about it? And he's like, well, people say it all the time. So I'm thinking about it because people keep telling me about it. Right. And then I think that, it's unfortunate that people keep going back to these stupid topics instead of asking about things that matter.
But he fans the flames of it. He's literally telling Kristen Welker, there's ways you could do it. Why?
Again, I think he's just saying that to make it this random possibility so that he's not considered this lame duck, a little 4 years right here in the middle. So I think that is the purpose of not saying, of course not, but I think that he just keeps getting harassed about it. And then when you see it in a headline or you see it in writing or you see her saying this is what he said on the phone, it looks a lot worse than, for instance, in that cut where it was, hey, people just keep saying it, so I keep thinking about it, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen and I don't want to talk about it right now. But of course he's going to talk because he talks.
Yeah, he's a talker. I mean, wouldn't it be a better thing for him to be like, what a stupid question. Of course I'm not. Stop trying to distract from all the good work that we're doing.
No, again,
but the thing is that he puts the issue out there, so any good reporter is going to ask about it. I mean, if he says it,
no, you're going to keep getting the same response. I would not spend my time with Trump asking a stupid question like that.
If he had just said he's not joking about it, you wouldn't ask the president of the United States, are you really not joking about it?
Right. Because that was a phone call conversation that's relayed through a thing. So then, I didn't get to hear it. So did you really say, like, what can you specify or can you clarify that? Yes. But I wouldn't continue with a stupid path that they're on of getting him to say something that they can, like, pull out a clickable headline from.
From my experience as a reporter, if a politician just won't answer the question, I'll continually ask them. So
but
to
he
me,
is answering the question.
He's not answering the question. He's saying, well, I don't want to talk about that now. A lot of people tell me to, but I don't want to. So he's not answering the question. So
it's not relevant
instead
right
of
now.
just, it is relevant. It's unconstitutional to do. So why is he even floating the idea? It's just a stupid distraction from all this fantastic stuff he's doing. Mm-hmm. And look, I get it. The media will always find something to pull out to be like, he's an existential threat to our democracy. Mm-hmm. So if it's not this, it's something else. Meanwhile, they systematically hunt down people who are driving the wrong car and burn their vehicles, so
because they're mad about democracy.
So I get it. He does this stuff that just
the
bothers
media jumps on these things.
They should.
And then you get bad. But they should just
that
let
is
it
doing
go.
your job
it's a
as
stupid
the media.
Question to be like, hey, are you going to run for a third term? And
but if it came out of the blue, because Democrats would always float the idea. No, he brought it up. Democrats would always float the idea back out that he won't leave office. And then the media would jump on that. He never said, I'm not going to leave office. They just manufactured this controversy. That's much different. Now, had they manufactured this like Donald Trump's going to try to seek a third term out of nowhere, and then they asked him about it, and he's like, no. But instead he's like, I'm not joking when I say that. There's ways you could do it. So it's self-inflicted. There's no one to blame for that headline except him.
Oh, yeah, there is. And I bet you I could find somewhere where he said, of course I'm going to leave office. Of course I'm not running for a third. I bet I could find that. But it's not good enough for them. They'll keep answering so that they'll keep asking so that he answers in some stupid way like that because he, I don't know, he's just he just keeps talking.
He can't help himself.
And I agree. He should just stop talking at some point. But I also appreciate that he's more transparent than any other president.
By not answering a question repeatedly over and over after floating it, that's transparency.
Like I said, no, presidents don't like to get in there and be like, yeah, I'm done after this, especially when he just had a break in terms, right? So everything was undone 4 years ago. Now he's got to redo everything for 4 years, and they don't like to say that they're not going to be here at the end of this. So you can say I've had 8 years and hopefully I've set it up, whatever. But he's in the first few months of his second term.
I don't think
it's
I
so
think you're
stupid.
Giving him too much.
I'm not giving him anything. I'm just saying it is a manufactured. It's a manufactured thing from media because that person on a phone call. I'm sure she threw out a lot of stupid stuff, but she focused on I'm not ruling it out or whatever because that's it sounds like him. It sounds to be like, hey, I'm not going to tell you no, but that's dumb and that's not what we do here. But I'm just not going to tell you no because that hurts my presidency. And then she makes it into this big huge thing.
All right, we'll move on because we're just all around in circles. I asked on this subscriber poll, would you support President Trump running for a third term? Please don't disappoint me, you guys. Okay, yeah, 83% said no, 17% said yes. You guys, there's a constitution. We can't just pick and choose.
For sure.
Oh, blowing my mind. Sharon says, stick to the rules. It's worked for the past 74 years. Van, I voted no for a number of reasons. I'm a middle conservative that voted for him twice, mostly because the alternative was too crazy to think about. There are now a good number of conservative alternatives available. President Trump, and that's the thing, J.D. Vance, I think, would make a great president. So just talking about it's kind of insulting to J.D. Vance, frankly.
Oh, he'll get there.
Vivian, I wouldn't want to open that door. Look at the third-term Washington governor. Yeah, but in Washington, it's illegal to seek a third term. You can't do it at the federal level for president. Sunny days, way too soon to discuss this. Check back in 3 years. It's not too soon. Just say you're not going to do it. Miranda says, it's all fun and games until we got a not so liberal in there for 3 terms. Mm-hmm. And nobody would give the same sort of, Nicole would not give as vigorous a defense if it was Sleepy Joe Biden being like, I'm thinking about a third term. Nicole would lose her mind on him.
No, I don't think that I would, but that doesn't happen to Democrats. This media game that they play where they just want him to say something, it doesn't happen. Why wasn't Joe Biden asked about the 15,000 vacations he took in the few
agree.
days that he was actually in office. Nobody asked him about that. He didn't, or I'm sure he did, but nobody covered him getting asked about, hey, you're gone again? Hey. I mean, he didn't.
Oh, yeah. The media is super easy on Democrats.
Media has so much access to Trump that they can set him up for these things. So do I think he should probably limit their access? Yeah, but then you tell me that that's wrong too.
Yeah, no, it is wrong. and he can deal with the media fine, but that's these things can all exist at once. We can say the media is way too soft on Democratic politicians. They never held Biden accountable for anything. And the media is also way too insane about Donald Trump, focuses on things to make him look bad, but Donald Trump should also stop saying shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, like,
it's been a story so many times, and then he comes out and he says, "No, I don't want to talk about that. That's dumb." And then he talks about how many people tell him that he should. That's those people's problems. But
it just gives fuel to the Democrats. It just gives them more fuel and more fodder. You really don't have to sway when it comes to elections. Like, Donald Trump. This was a what do you call it? I was going to say smoke show, but that's not the right term. This was a blowout.
Oh, yeah.
But you still are talking about a relatively small percentage of the electorate that you have to shift.
Yep.
And I mean, look, I voted for Trump for the first time. So there are a lot of voters out there like me who, I mean, I'm not voting for a Democrat anytime soon for the presidency because they've lost their ever-loving minds. But you really don't have to shift that much of the electorate to have a different outcome in the presidential election. So he does have to be concerned about those things for the next Republican president, who I want to continue the strength at the border, the strength on the world stage. So he just hands them ammunition when they have plenty of they can make up already.
But you know, it also, what it did as well is because you were talking about J.D. Vance, and he had that Greenland appearance, which everybody was making fun of and saying that he should resign over, which was just silliness. But that also got the attention off that. And so he finds these stupid stories that his base cares nothing about and distracts from anything else that's kind of silly.
I don't know. I think you give him too much credit. I just think he just can't help himself. And it just is
self-inflicted. Attacking the media. I'm not giving him that much credit. I do agree he could say things differently and he could get rid of them quicker. But yeah, I just think it's a silly story that they jump on.
We'll get to comments. And then I have a story I just want to throw in to get people's opinions on it. So after this, it's just something I've been thinking about and stewing on all night about this gun control proposal. And I'm almost scared to say it, but I'm just going to throw it out there. So just give me a second.
Okay.
Our friend Zach Abraham at Bulwark Capital, you can catch him every week on our weekly show, Doge Watch, with Zach Abraham. He and his team at Bulwark Capital specialize in risk management. So, look, there's been some downs in the stock market, certainly under President Donald Trump. And this is pretty normal to have changes when there's a new president in office. But Zach is really looking at long-term outlooks and risk management. And so to me, it's like running your retirement portfolio through a Department of Retirement Efficiency. He's going to go in there. So they do something called a free risk review. So it's like a second opinion. So you've got somebody managing your money right now. Why not get a second opinion if you're worried about, stock market or whatever it is? So they'll do, Bulwark Capital do a full reveal of how they're always looking for opportunities to lower risk, lower costs, give your retirement as much upside as possible. He'll answer any questions you have about concerns about what's happening in the stock market right now, or maybe how tariffs, especially if you're getting close to retirement. The decision's happening right now. If your retirement's 10, 15, 20 years off, this is just sort of a, set it and, you're not as obsessed with the everyday. But if you're getting close to retirement, you might be really concerned about some of the stuff that's happening. So Zach Abraham and his team at Bulwark Capital can walk you through sort of what you should be concerned about, should not be concerned about, and then how to properly manage your risk. You only get one retirement. Get a second opinion. Schedule your free risk review now at knowyourriskradio.com, knowyourriskradio.com. Okay, I'm just going to say it. And I don't want it to come across as like I'm putting ideas in people's heads, because that's not obviously my intention. But I was going over this interview I did with Bill Kirk last week. So William Kirk is with Washington Gun Law. He's like a great 2A attorney. And we were talking about the permit to purchase a firearm bill. So this is definitely going to become law in Washington. It wouldn't go into effect until November of 2026. But basically, you'd have to get a permit to purchase a firearm. And part of the process of getting a permit is that you have to do live fire training. So you have to go to a gun range and do training, shooting a gun before you can buy a gun, which is sort of interesting. And, you know, they were saying, well, how would you even get a gun? I think you can rent a gun from a range, right? Like you could rent a gun from a range to fire.
Oh, yeah.
Because, or else you'd be, how would you do live fire training before you get a gun, right? So I was listening to, and maybe I should have put this in the show today, Attorney General Nick Brown, the first time he's ever testified in favor of a bill or at all is in favor of the permit to purchase a firearm bill. He testified in front of the committee that was hearing it last week. And one of his big reasons for this is it'll give a little bit of time, like cooling off period. Mm-hmm. So like it could take you up to 2 months to buy a gun, right? And I'm sorry I'm throwing this at you because it wasn't on the show today, but I've just been stewing on it. Mm-hmm. So he says it's a cooling off period. So if you want to harm yourself or harm someone else, now you have this cooling off period with the permit to purchase process. This is what I want to say. And I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, for like somebody's going to say this is ridiculous. Because he was really focusing on the suicide issue, right?
Right.
If you were trying to buy a gun to kill yourself and you had to take live fire training at a range, would you not just do it at the range? So now you don't even have to go through the process of buying a gun and the background check, because they're going to send you to a range to do live fire training around other people. And if your intent was suicide, like Nick Brown says, we're trying to prevent that, would you not just do it at the range?
I think they're thinking it wouldn't be such an emotional decision. So it would be, you'd have to go through the steps to get that, make that appointment.
You could do it faster.
Training. Mm-hmm.
You could take your own life faster this way. Mm-hmm. Could you not? Am I wrong on this? I've been stewing on it all night. Instead of having to wait, 10-day waiting period, all this stuff, background check, and then you come back and you pick up your firearm. They're going to send you, the first step is to a range. Before the background check process and all of that. Around other people, where they're putting a gun in the hands of someone who doesn't even have, hasn't even passed the process to own a firearm. So this is the first step, right? How does this make any sense?
Oh, it doesn't, but I don't think it's meant to make sense, right?
But have they even thought about that? If that's the reason Attorney General Nick Brown is going to give, we need a cooling off period. Somebody's intent, homicidal, suicidal ideation. So you're going to give them a loaded gun at a range around other people, and you're expecting them not to just turn it on themselves and be done with it? Am I the only one who's thought of this? Somebody tell me in the comments if there's a reason. And I understand somebody said suicide is not common at ranges. I understand that.
She's saying it might become more
But what I'm
common.
saying is, if you're the logic of the Attorney General is a cooling off period before you get a gun in your hand so you can't hurt yourself or someone else. But now you're putting a gun in their hand right away. So I'm not saying people are going to do that, and people who go to buy firearms, I don't believe the narrative from the Attorney General that this is about, no, we have an issue with criminals having guns and hurting people. Primarily, that's the issue. But the logic of what he's saying makes no sense, because under your logic, you're actually making it easier for them to access a firearm to take their life. Right? Somebody tell me if I'm off base with this. I've been thinking about it all night, and I don't even, and again, I understand that, this isn't something that happens all the time at ranges. But if I'm going by the logic of the Attorney General, I don't understand how that would prevent or make it less likely that someone would use a gun to hurt themselves or other people. Anyway, word soup out, but I've been thinking about it all night. So I'm sure I'll get some comments on this, and I'll have to ask William Kirk about it. But it's also this issue with ranges. Will a range rent out a gun? I have to believe they will, because there are ranges you can go to and shoot firearms that you don't own, like rifles or whatever it is.
Sure.
Well,
one person said that some ranges won't rent you a gun unless you already have one. But
in theory, they have to change that.
That would have to be changed. Right. Yeah.
This is interesting. Anyway, and I know Dale Draper says that law has nothing to do about preventing suicide. No. I agree. The law is about stomping on our Second Amendment rights, making it take up to 2 months before you can exercise a constitutionally protected right. What if I had to wait 2 months to be able to get a press pass? I mean, I've waited longer than that in Olympia, but you know what I mean? It's just, anyway. No, Mike Bolden says she was thinking about self-deleting all night. No. I'm just saying, I've listened to that. That's why I was I shouldn't have said it. I shouldn't have said anything. I was listening to that clip from Attorney General Nick Brown. And I was just putting this, that doesn't make any sense. What do you mean you're going to give people a cooling off period? you're putting a gun in their hands for live fire training actually earlier than they would under the current process.
Maybe they put blanks. I don't know.
No, I don't. Live fire training is.
I know.
So anyway, sorry, maybe I shouldn't have said anything, but that's how, one of the ways that I think you can just destroy that narrative. If that is really what they're selling this on, permit to purchase, that it's about a cooling off period for people who want to harm themselves, then it makes no sense. I mean, we know that that's not the reason that they're doing the bill. But I've been thinking about it all night. Anyway, I'm sure William Kirk will send me a message later. Be like,
yeah,
Brandi,
we'll find out.
Why'd you say something like that? It's weird. Anyway. Comments. Crafty Grandma Crispy. Senator Peterson stated at the end of last year the voters gave them a mandate to tax us because the initiatives failed on the ballot. Yeah, because they spent millions of dollars, courtesy of companies like Amazon, to defeat them. Papa Woody, $2 super chat. Amazon is building in the little town of Elma. They're probably building a distribution center, right? And you'll still need distribution centers in every state.
Everywhere. Mm-hmm.
So Amazon taking its tech employees elsewhere, if they choose to do that, you still have the distribution centers. Hannah, LOL, legislators literally crying because they have less tax dollars to waste. Mm-hmm. Was I mean about not feeling bad for that Democrat who's like,
that's ridiculous.
Crying on the floor about having to cut spending?
Because you were handed something that would help all of the people you're talking about, and you chose the one that didn't.
It's just
that
insane.
Took away money from you.
Yeah. Laura, Senator Sanford of District 1 said the exact same thing verbatim on his Facebook post. I wonder what specifically, like the exact same thing as the senator that we played cuts from, probably.
I'm guessing it's going to be their talking points. That's how they've been instructed. We've seen talking points come out before.
Yep.
So I'm
and they follow those pretty closely. We sent out exclusively in December. It was like 2 days before Christmas. Mm-hmm. The talking points they had planned for new taxes, and they have followed those talking points to a T. Mm-hmm. Let me see. Teresa, all these new taxes and increases, and it's just going to make more people need the food bank, lose their homes, and need rental assistance. Exactly. And then they'll be like, oh, wow, a lot of people need the food bank.
Government
A lot of people need rental assistance. So now the government can step in and cover for what they created. Isn't it interesting? It's a really sick cycle as opposed to letting us keep our own money and we can take care of ourselves. Carol, my husband and I are seniors and there is no help for seniors on fixed incomes with property taxes. The senator is lying. Yeah, I'll look into more about what she says that they're doing to help seniors. Country guy, their fair share is such a great marketing phrase as an excuse to tax people. Yeah.
Who decides what's fair?
Who decides what their fair share is?
What's the fair
Democrats.
share? Mm-hmm.
Democrats get to decide. A couple people giving me money for the swear jar. Thanks, Doge Washington and Dr. Von Braun. Appreciate that. I do apologize for the F word. I'll bleep it out in the podcast before it goes to the podcast.
The S word doesn't even faze them anymore.
I apologize. It's a rare thing. 67 Malibu girl. Swear jar worthy funds. This legislature is out of control. Let me see here. Barron, head count tax will be the final nail. Seattle is 46 million in debt, and this will go statewide. Bye-bye economy, elite class, and surf class. Yep, 100%. And then they'll come back to us. Oh, like I said, when they can't tax the rich because the rich ain't here anymore, who gets taxed? They don't just stop taxing. Then all of that falls on us. Let's see here. Anna, thank you for the $4.99 for our swear jar fund. BOFA. B-O, does that stand for something? I'm scared to ask.
I thought it was like Bank of America, but I don't think that's what it's supposed to be.
Sales tax down half a penny per year. Yeah. Thanks, Democrats. Really nice. Papa says, Mom's 87 this year. Nobody's lowering her property tax. Yeah, I'm curious what they'd added that helps elderly people stay in their homes. Tracy, I'm sorry you weren't feeling well, but damn do I love it when you're pissed off. Hope you feel better soon. Nicole was right, though. I felt so gross before the show. And honestly, it's because I ate like garbage yesterday. We had a barbecue at my place on Saturday. And of course, everybody left their food. It's about hosting a barbecue.
I actually thought I was going to get in trouble for not leaving my salsa. And because I kind of just grabbed all of my stuff and I was like, oh, Brandy's probably going to be bummed I didn't leave my salsa. But
your salsa's sometimes too spicy for me.
Yeah.
But my friend Dana left this blueberry pie and ice cream.
Yeah.
How many pieces do you think I had yesterday?
Yesterday?
Just yesterday.
3.
I did have 3. Yeah. Good job. I had 3 pieces of pie.
Because I think 4 would have mentally
that would have been
taken
a half
you overboard.
So sorry, Eastside Weight Loss Clinic. I'll do better tomorrow. But I sent her the angriest text. How dare you leave that pie? So bad. Country guy. I know we're going way over time. Sorry, guys. $5 super chat. It amazes me that people who are truly in the working class continue to believe the Democrat BS grift swear jar contribution. Juan Pablo, term limits. We have to clean the toilet bowl at some point regardless. The Dems are literally pulling a Robin Hood on us. But not really. Like, they're stealing from the rich and then from the needy and giving it to themselves. Yeah.
They claim they're going to steal from the rich,
they claim
but
like they're
it's
Robin
not
Hood.
going to.
Holy smokes, there's a lot of comments in here today. I don't even know if I can get to all of these. SSR, is the new gas tax going to save or complete the
north-south corridor? That's right.
The north-south corridor in Spokane. I don't know. Oh, I see. Then he put a follow-up.
Apparently, well, I think that's the plan for it, yes, is that all of the projects that are going right now, they claim they would have to halt if they didn't pass this.
Well, that's what they said about the CCA, and they were very strategic about it. They said if you repeal the CCA,
all these things go away.
Our budget's going to be absolutely upended, which is interesting because CCA money isn't used for the transportation budget. So what are they talking about? But they picked projects in purple areas, like the expansion of SR 18, the widening of SR 18, the project in Spokane.
Ferries.
Yep. Areas that are purple. They're like, this project you desperately need will go away. And they lied to people. It's just wild. Let me see. Son Miller, thank you very much for the super chat. Let's see. Rick White, as a combat wounded and disabled veteran, between these taxes and the attack on our Second Amendment, I'm going to be forced to have to move out of the state. And I came back here when I could have gone to any of the other states to retire. Shameful and disgusting. I agree. James said, I'm a disabled veteran and have looked into these tax relief efforts for veterans. The stipulations are ridiculous. That such a tiny percent of vets even qualify. I figured it was something like that. But of course, they'll hold up the very few people who they're helping and want you to ignore the millions of people that they're hurting. That's what they do. I mean, that's how they sell these things to the public. So it's just absolutely wild.
I just learned this weekend, though. If you retire back to the state you enlisted from, that you get more retirement as a veteran.
So if you enlisted in Washington and you return to Washington, that's interesting.
I know. I just learned that from
Weird. I've never heard that. Yeah. But I mean, my father-in-law is a fully disabled vet. And I mean, the taxes are crushing. And he gets, I don't know what the situation is with the property taxes. There is something that helps him out. But when you increase the gases and you don't have, I mean, this is really for anybody who's on a fixed income. You're on a fixed income. Your income that you're getting every month is not changing. And then your gas tax, property tax
goes up hundreds of dollars a month. That's crazy.
No, there's nothing. And it's just because both your parents are retired now, right? Fully retired. Yeah. And so it's a fixed income. So like, what do you do? So I don't know. It's just absolutely insane. All right. With that, should we get to our closing sanity check?
Sure.
40 minutes after the show was supposed to end. Let's be honest. It's not an hour-long show anymore. We have too much to say. Let's get to our closing sanity check. All right, let's have a little dose of sanity, shall we, to end the show today. So while other Democrats are losing their ever-loving minds, at least we have Rob Saka on the Seattle City Council, who a couple months ago, he came out and said the defund the police movement is dead. It was a huge mistake, and he never participated in it. So he is trying to pick up the pieces of what other people did on the Seattle City Council before him. But he came out and said it's not enough to just say it. He actually introduced a resolution that he wants his fellow council members to vote on to say definitively defund the police is a failed idea.
This resolution today is crucial for our city and represents a strong commitment to continuing to turn the corner on public safety.
I love this guy.
Move forward and heal together. This resolution reverses any prior commitment or pledge by past councils to defund or abolish the police. We know that these statements were routinely cited by departing police personnel as a reason for leaving. We also know that they were very divisive. It's council action that shows that we are ready to come together as a city, support our public safety professionals, acknowledge their hard work and commitment, and move on from the divisions of the past. It's time that we focus on the future of public safety and how we can better serve our city. important piece of legislation that is the proverbial cherry on top, if you will, for all the work that we've done this past year to reform our department, to advance public safety, to live up to our charter responsibility to keep people safe and communities safe.
We like it, council member. We like it. Although there's only one explanation for him saying that. He's racist. He's racist. What's that? Oh, he's black? Doesn't matter. Racist. If you support the police, you're obviously a racist. That has been your sanity check for today. That has been today's extra, triple, extra overtime edition of Undivided. Nicole, I'm sorry about what I said about your Pepsi. It was delicious, and I appreciate you giving it to me to settle my stomach. It's not a Diet Coke, but it shall do. I will not tell Donald Trump that you prefer Diet Pepsi. Hey, make sure he doesn't know.
I don't have to please him.
Oh, I don't know. I beg to differ. It seems like you do. If you haven't signed up to support our show already, we are a fan-funded show. So it would mean a lot to us if you'd sign up to support the show. It's just $5 a month. And unlike the government, we give veterans real discounts. You can get your first year of Undivided if you're a veteran, member of the military, or first responder. That includes you too, ICE, out there doing the people's work. You're a first responder. You can get 30% off. Go to undividedpod.com, click on support the show, use the promo code USA. We'll see you tomorrow, homies.